Here are chapters 18 through 20 of Sideways Stories from Wayside School. Chapter 18, Leslie. Leslie had 5 fingers on each hand and 5 toes on each foot. For each hand she had an arm, and for each foot she had a leg. She was a very lucky girl. And she had 2 lovely, long, brown pigtails that reached all the way down to her waist. When Miss Jules asked a question, Leslie could raise one of her hands. When Leslie was adding, she could count on her fingers. When Paul pulled one of her pigtails, she could kick him with one foot while standing on the other. But Leslie had one problem. She didn't know what to do with her toes. She had 10 adorable little toes and nothing to do with them. As far as she could tell, they served no useful purpose. "Suck your toes, that's what I do," said Sherry. But Leslie's foot wouldn't reach her mouth. "Well, that's all toes are good for," said Sherry. She put her foot in her mouth and went to sleep. Yuck. No, thought Leslie, they must be good for something. They just have to be. During recess, she asked Dana, "Dana, what do you do with your toes?" "I scratch the back of my legs," said Dana. "First I scratch my left leg with my right foot, then I scratch my right leg with my left foot." "But my legs don't itch," said Leslie. "That's good," said Dana. "In that case you can scratch my legs. With your help I can scratch both legs at the same time." No, never mind," said Leslie. She walked up behind Louis, the yard teacher, and hopped on his shoulders. "Louis," said Leslie, "I don't know what to do with my toes." Louis tugged her foot. "Yes, that is a serious problem," he said, "but I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll cut them off your hands for you. I'll take them off your hands for you, or rather, your feet. Just cut them off and give them to me." "What?" asked Leslie. "You don't want them, so I'll take them," said Louis. "You won't have to worry about them ever again." "No," said Leslie. "I'll give them to Miss Mush," said Louis. "She can make little hot dogs out of them." Miss Mush was the lunch teacher. "No, I'm not going to give you my toes," said Leslie. "All right," said Louis. "I'll give you a nickel apiece for them." "No, you can't have them," said Leslie. "Why not?" Louis asked. "They're no good to you anyhow. And think of all you can buy for 50 cents. The bell rang. "I'll think it over," said Leslie. She ran back to class. "Miss Jules," said Leslie, "I don't see any reason for keeping my toes." "Oh, Leslie, I'm sure there are lots of good reasons," said Miss Jules. "Well, I can't think of any. My legs don't itch, and I can't get my foot in my mouth. Louis offered me a nickel apiece for them, and it seems to me like a good deal, but I wanted to check with you first." "I think Louis was pulling your legs," said Miss Jules. "No," said Leslie, "he was pulling my toes." "What would he want with your toes?" asked Miss Jules. "I don't know," said Leslie, "but if he's willing to give me 5 cents apiece for them, then I'm going to take him up on it. That's 50 cents. At lunch, Leslie walked up to Louis. "Okay, Louis," she said, "you can have my toes for a nickel apiece. That will be 50 cents. "Not so fast," said Louis. "Let me look at 'em first." Leslie took off her shoes. "Yes, yes," said Louis, "the big ones are good, and the ones next to them, but the most I'll give you for the rest of your toes is 3 cents each." Leslie was furious. 3 cents each? You told me 5 at recess. "I'll give you 5 cents for the big ones, but just look at that scrawny little runt of a toe on the end there. You're lucky to be getting even 3 cents for it. I think you're getting a darn good deal." "I happen to like that toe," said Leslie. "Fine then," said Louis. "Keep it. I'll just take the 2 big toes and we'll call it square." He reached in his pocket and pulled out a dime. "Nothin' doin'," said Leslie. These toes are sold as a set. It's either all 10 for 50 cents or no deal. What am I going to do with just 8 toes?" "Then forget it," said Louis. "I'm not going to give you a nickel for those scrawny little end toes." Fine," said Leslie. "No deal. My toes will still be here if you change your mind." She turned and walked toward the hopscotch area. "Wait a second," Louis called. "I'll give you $1 each for your pigtails." Leslie turned around and looked at him with fiery eyes. "Cut my hair?" she exclaimed. "Are you crazy?" Chapter 19, Miss Zarves. There is no Miss Zarves. There is no 19th story. Sorry. Chapter 20, Cathy. "Cathy doesn't like you. She doesn't know you, but she still doesn't like you. She thinks you're stupid. In fact, she thinks you are the stupidest person she doesn't even know. What do you think of that? She also thinks you're ugly. As a matter of fact, she thinks you are the ugliest person she doesn't know, and she doesn't know a lot of people. She doesn't like the people she knows either. She hates everybody in Miss Jewel's class. She did like one member of the class. She liked Sammy. She thought he was funny. Sammy was a dead rat. But Cathy has good reasons for not liking any of the children she knows. She doesn't like DJ because he smiles too much, and she doesn't like John because he can't stand on his head. Cathy once had a cat named Skunks. She liked Skunks, but she was afraid that Skunks would run away. You have nothing to worry about, Cathy, said Miss Jules. Skunks won't run away. Just be nice to him and feed him and pet him, and he won't run away. He may go out and play, but he'll always come back. No, you're wrong, Miss Jules, said Cathy. What do you know? He'll run away. So Cathy kept Skunks locked up in her closet at home. She never let him out and sometimes even forgot to feed him. One day, while Cathy was looking for her other shoe, Skunks ran out of the closet and never came back. You said he would come back, Miss Jules, said Cathy. He never came back. You were wrong. I was right. That was why Cathy didn't like Miss Jules. The next time I get a cat, I'll kill him. Then he'll never run away, said Cathy. Then there was the time that Damien tried to teach Cathy how to play catch. Damien said, When I throw you the ball, Cathy, try to catch it. I can't catch it, said Cathy. I'll just get hurt. You won't get hurt, Damien insisted. Just watch the ball. He tossed it to her. But Cathy knew she'd get hurt, so she closed her eyes. The ball hit her on the cheek. It hurt. Cathy began to cry. You were wrong, she sobbed. I was right. That was why Cathy didn't like Damien. Alison believed that if you are nice to someone, then they'll be nice to you. So one day she brought Cathy a cookie. I don't want your ugly cookie, said Cathy. It probably tastes terrible. Alison said, No, it is very good. I made it myself. Cathy said, If you made it, then it must stink. You can't cook. You're too stupid. She just put the cookie in her desk along with her pencils, crayons, and books. 3 weeks later, Cathy was hungry. All right, Alison, she said, I'll try your stupid cookie. She took it out of her desk. It was covered with dust. She bit it. It was hard and tasted terrible. See, said Cathy, I was right. That was why Cathy didn't like Alison. Yes, Cathy had very good reasons for not liking anybody she knew, but she always has a good reason for not liking you. And she doesn't even know you. Her reason is this. She knows that if you ever met her, you wouldn't like her. You don't like Cathy, do you? See, she was right. It's funny how a person can be right all the time and still be wrong. And we're going to keep going. Chapter 21, Ron. Ron had curly hair and little feet. I want to play kickball, he said. You can't play, said Terrence. Get out of here, said Dee Dee. Scram, said Jason. I want to play kickball, said Ron. Well, you're not playing, said Terrence. Beat it. Ron stomped across the playground to the hopscotch area. Jenny was playing hopscotch with Louis. Jenny was on 9. Louis was still on 4, but it was his turn. I want to play kickball, Ron said. So go play kickball, said Louis. Terrence won't let me play, said Ron. Louis walked with Ron to the kickball field. Hey, what about our hopscotch game? Jenny asked. You won, said Louis. I just beat Louis in hopscotch, Jenny announced. Leslie, Rondi, and Alison flocked around her. Hey, Louis, Damien shouted. Do you want to play kickball? All right, said Louis. Ron and I will both play. No, said Terrence. Ron isn't playing. Anyone who wants to play can play, said Louis. No, he can't, said Terrence. It's my ball. It isn't your ball, said Louis. Well, you gave it to me, said Terrence. I gave it to you to share, said Louis. If you can't share it, you can't have it. Oh, all right, said Terrence, but I get to pitch. Ron and I will stand everybody, Louis announced. All right, said Jason, we'll kill 'em. We'll murder 'em, said Dee Dee. We'll smash 'em, said Myron. We'll see, said Louis. Ron pitched, and Louis played the other 8 positions. 20 minutes later, they finally got 3 outs. The score was 21-0. Ron was up first. No, we just went out. Sorry. Infield in, shouted Damien. Everybody stood within 10 feet of home plate. All right, Ron, Louis shouted. Kick it over their heads. Ron kicked the ball only 3.5 feet. Todd picked it up and threw him out. Lewis was up. Everybody ran back to the edge of the field. Still, Lewis kicked the ball over their heads for a home run. Everybody ran all the way back in again for Ron's up. He kicked the ball only 2 feet. Dee Dee tagged him out. Lewis kicked another home run. Ron then kicked the ball a foot and tripped over it on his way to first base. 3 outs. Ron and Lewis held the other team to only 5 runs the next inning. That was because the bell rang. Lunch was finally over. Lewis and Ron lost 26-2. Ron had had a wonderful time. The next day Ron said, "I want to play kickball." "You can't play," said Terrence. "Get out of here," said Jason. "Scram," said Dee Dee. "I want to play kickball," Ron told Lewis. Lewis walked with him to the kickball field. "Ron and I will stand all of you." Everybody liked the teams. Ron pitched while Lewis played the other 8 positions. They lost 57-2. After the game, Lewis took Ron aside. "Listen, Ron," he said, why do you always want to play kickball? You can't kick, you can't field, you can't even run to first base. You just get smashed every game." "Hey, now, wait a second," said Ron. "Don't go blaming it all on me. You're half the team too, you know." And with that he punched Lewis in the stomach, and he punched a heck of a lot harder than he kicked.